The Big One is one of the most iconic roller coasters at any theme park here in the UK. The Big One is a 1994 aerodynamics hypercoaster located at Blackpool Pleasure Beach and has been the tallest roller coaster in the UK for nearly 30 years now, 3 decades, towering above the Blackpool Pleasure Beach skyline. This iconic coaster is one of aerodynamics' most famous creations, and the now defunct coaster manufacturer doesn't have too many coasters left standing, but I believe that the Big One at Blackpool Pleasure Beach could be the last operating aero coaster in the future, so stick around to find out why. Welcome to Coasternaut, and if you enjoy this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel for future videos on Blackpool Pleasure Beach and their rides and coasters in the future. So then, why do I believe the Big One could be the last operating aero coaster in the future? Before we go into the future, let's look at the past. Aerodynamics built the Big One at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in 1994. This is the year of the roller coaster here in the UK, as it was the same year as Nemesis opened at Alton Towers and Shockwave opened at Drayton Manor. So this was a fantastic UK theme park industry year with fantastic coasters opening. Aerodynamics opened the 1994 Big One, and this was one of the best roller coasters in the world at this time, coming from one of the best roller coaster manufacturers in the world, Aerodynamics, who came up with so many innovative designs. Aero are the reason why we have so many fantastic steel coasters today, as they created the first tubular steel track roller coaster with the Disney Matterhorn at Disney's California's Adventure. This type is used on most steel coasters today still, so the reason we have so many fantastic steel coasters around today can mostly be put down to Arrow and their technologies creating the first tubular steel track coaster. Arrow continued to break records on many of their coasters throughout history, with rides like Magnum XL200, Vortex and Viper continuing to break height records and inversion records, and every time one of these records seemed to be smashed throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, these were very consistently smashed by Arrow coasters. The company truly was one of the most innovative manufacturers in the world and will go down as one of the most innovative and unique coaster manufacturers in history in the industry. However, unfortunately, due to bankruptcy after a lawsuit from Six Flags regarding their X Fourth Dimension coaster, many maintenance issues because of this coaster led to a bankruptcy file claim in 2001 from Aerodynamics, and unfortunately the company officially became defunct and closed down in 2002. Therefore, because of this, Arrow obviously stopped creating coasters, and unfortunately parts for existing rides became harder and more expensive to find, making it harder to maintain and keep up many of their current coasters. Many Arrow coasters have slowly been removed at parks throughout the years all over the world. As I've said, it becomes harder and more expensive to maintain these rides, and there are now just more modern day attractions and coasters on the market, and many parks are choosing to replace their more older Arrow coasters with some more up-to-date technologies and rides that might be slightly more reliable or more thrilling for guests. Aerodynamics currently have 66 operating coasters, with most built between the 1980s and 1990s. The oldest operating aero roller coaster today is the Matterhorn Bobsleds. In 1959 this was built, and as I've said before, this is the original tubular steel track coaster located at Disney's California Adventure theme park in the USA. Now, this is obviously a very well looked after ride because it's had a Disney park and the amount of money, and they will obviously have some of the best maintenance teams in the world that are constantly caring for this attraction, especially over the off season. And this is, as I said, one of the most important coasters in theme park history. Being the first ever coaster to introduce tubular steel track, which has gone on to become the most widely used technology in forms of creating steel coasters even to this day, this is truly a landmark coaster that will likely be preserved for as long as it possibly can be, until Disney feel like it completely has to be replaced with something that will please guests more than it currently does. And in my opinion, this is the only potential rival for the last operating Arrow coaster to the Big One at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and here's why. The Big One at Blackpool is such an important coaster, not just for the park, but also for the UK theme park industry and the area of Blackpool as a whole. It's been the tallest coaster here in the UK for nearly 3 decades now, like I say, 29 years since it opened. And everyone in the UK has heard of the Big One, thanks to branding and marketing schemes over the years. It opened as the Pepsi Max Big One, it's had fantastic marketing over the years. And if you ask anyone in the UK, not just the coaster enthusiasts, but typically the GP, the general public, to draw or think of a coaster, there's a good chance that they'll say the Big One. The coaster is visible for absolutely miles away along the Blackpool Promenade. Anyone who's ever been to Blackpool knows that the sight of the Blackpool skyline looks phenomenal with the big one right down the end of the promenade, and it truly is the highlight of that Blackpool skyline alongside the Blackpool Tower, and it truly brings in so much tourism for the area. And I think it is one of the most iconic coasters anywhere in the world, but especially for the UK theme park industry. This massive 213-foot hypercoaster, located just a matter of meters away from the Atlantic Ocean, it's got such a unique view. It's one of the most picturesque coasters in the world, and it's in such a unique area, like I say, right on the actual beach itself. This coaster is one of the most well-known sites in the British theme park industry, and for Blackpool tourism and the overall area as a whole, it's so important for bringing in money to the area and improving the overall community. And so not just for Pleasure Beach, it's rare that a coaster has this much of an effect on the overall area, not just the park itself. The coaster has been continuously looked after by the park in the past 29 years. We've seen the first drop completely reprofiled over the years to see it more smooth and cause less damage to the supports, the trains, the track itself, make it a smoother ride experience. We've seen multiple sections, especially over the past sort of 5 years, of track completely retracked and removed, and it has gone over multiple repaints throughout the years as well to keep the coaster looking very nice. This shows the amount of investment and money that the park wants to put into this classic coaster, showing how much they value it and how much they know it is important for the UK theme park industry and the Blackpool area as a whole. Blackpool Pleasure Beach is a park that also doesn't have loads of money comparing it to other parks, so replacing such an iconic coaster like the big one with a new modern coaster would leave lots of fans of the ride completely unhappy, as they wouldn't find it might be a more thrilling and modern ride experience, but it wouldn't be anywhere near as iconic and favoured with the guests, even if the ride experience was better and modernised. When you compare other Arrow coasters and the parks they operate at, I think there's a very good chance that this big one could be the final Arrow coaster that's left standing in the future. It's a landmark icon of the British coaster and theme park industry, and as I said before, in my opinion, the only aerodynamics coaster that I can see currently rivaling the potential of being the final operating Arrow coaster is the Matterhorn Bobsleds at Disney's California Adventure, simply for the historic factor of being the first tubular steel track coaster. However, Disney, they might want to maintain it for the history. However, Disney are a park that does need to always be innovating, having fantastic theming and modernised theming. And recent reviews of this ride have been, very mixed. Apparently it gives a bit of a rough, janky ride experience. The theming isn't up to scratch compared to with other things that Disney do these days. I know Disney's California Adventure gets a lot of slack as it's not up to the scratch and standard of the other Disney parks. So I can potentially see, them choosing one day to remove this and potentially putting in a new ride that is up to Disney's modern day standards. So what do you make of this? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me and think that the big one could be the last, or at least one of the last operating Arrow coasters, or do you think it'll be a different coaster like the Matterhorn Bobsleds at Disney? I'd love to know when you think the big one will finally be retired and closed down, and what your overall thoughts are on this topic. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like, it really helps out the channel. Subscribe to the channel for more videos on Blackpool Pleasure Beach in the future, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.